Have you ever wondered why it's so difficult to create a perfect food system? With so many interconnected factors influencing everything from production to consumption, it can be overwhelming to grasp the entire system. And whether does food system has any boundaries? Let's listen to expert views on this matter.
The biggest challenge with the food system concept is to define its boundaries. Where do we stop in the analysis or in the intervention? Because everything is connected nowadays. So in reality, there's not a clear boundary. So you need to somehow artificially say, well, this is the boundary of my analysis or intervention if I want to improve the food system.
But I have no control over what is happening in the government of any country or in the economic development of that country, except that small part of the dairy value chain. So it is something that is not in my reach, even if it is influencing the work I'm doing. I cannot control it.
But at a larger scale, it gets more complicated because there are more actors involved. It's difficult to bring people together to come to a decision together, and who has the mandate then to intervene. So the higher up you go in that sense, in terms of levels, to national or international scale, the more complex it gets when you talk about intervention. That's definitely true.
It really creates a question: who holds the authority to intervene on a global scale? And more importantly, how do we navigate a solution to this pressing matter?
So then it's about negotiation with, I don't know, could be with between countries, or the UN Food Systems Summit is an example where it was discussed at global level. I think what we see more is that it's implemented more at local level, where a town or a village says we want to improve the lives of our citizens, our inhabitants. Just from the village where I grew up, there's also an initiative that was sort of coming from the local GP, said, well, I see that there are some health issues in this village, in this community, but many of these health issues are related to unhealthy diet. So it's a very much a food system, very local, just in a village, where the local GP, the general practitioner, talk to the local bakery, and a few others, like how can we improve the diets of our citizens here? For example, by offering healthier foods that have a lower salt content. That's a very practical way of looking at a food system locally and how to improve that, and for what reason.
Although the value chain concept may seem simple or limited, but it is crucial to acknowledge these limitations and challenges.
The other way, and I like that example to be honest, because I was always impressed with it, is say, okay, you can make the supply chain investments in cooling, but if at the very end the consumers don't have a refrigerator, all the quality you maintain in the beginning of the value chain is lost again at the houses of the consumer. And poor consumers don't have electricity, they don't have a refrigerator. So I met some people that start working on traditional foods, for instance, on dairy, which is a very vulnerable commodity. And they said, no, we are not investing in cooling, we will invest in better fermentation. So to make the life cycle of the product longer and enable the consumer to keep it at home without a refrigerator.
You can definitely agree, maybe the consumers are not well enough considered in the approach. But the strength of this simple thing is that there is always one or two or three leading organizations that are taking responsibility to get things, let's say, started when it comes to development.
For example, if we just would look at the value chain of dairy products, whether it's milk or cheese that the Netherlands is producing and is exporting, we now realize that we get external sort of environmental outcomes that we don't want, which is a very high nitrogen emission at the moment, which causes a lot of pollution in our air, in our waters. It's negatively affecting our biodiversity. So that is again where we have the food system approach on top of the value chain approach. Yeah. to understand what are those trade-offs. Yes, it creates employment. Yes, it brings in money for the Netherlands. But it creates problems which also cost money. And the pollution, for example. So then decisions need to be made by policymakers, by society, thinking about what do we prioritize, what is the trade-off, and based on that we can make a decision. But these are often decisions at the level of policymakers who need to be able to understand the trade-offs to make a decision.
When the value chain concept started, those were the forgotten issues. Yeah? And so if you see within the chain, if you see a bottleneck, yeah, then you definitely have to put more emphasis on it. Sometimes you can do it with the current concept, so you are adding issues like value chain governance on that concept, but sometimes you need other concepts to understand well what's going on. And that is what happened with the food systems concept in my point of view.
So you need outside agents from the value chain to resolve the problems in the value chain. And then if you have the value chain problems addressed, you can expect a better outcome at the food system level again. So you go up and down. That makes it a little bit complex, I understand, but also fascinating at the same time. But you shouldn't get tricked into let's say, value chain problems that they should be solved within the value chain. You have to go outside. And that inside-outside thinking, that's critical for how to address system solutions.
We can use the value chain concept for the same, or we can also use the food system to discuss those issues.
The food system concept is undeniably complex, yet it tackles solutions that go beyond the value chain concepts. Nevertheless, it also identifies influential points within the value chain that can positively impact on food system. In principle, this encourages us to see which concept is fitting in certain situations to make our food system more healthier, accessible, and less environmentally hazardous. Thank you, Paul. What is, according to you, the main difference between the food system and value chain? I would like to see your opinion as an expert below this video. Please comment and draw a discussion between the experts. Thank you.